An essay appeared on the internet which described an experience of a man who spent a year in a city of 6,000 people, torn apart by war, and left to manage the reality of a shit hits the fan event that none of us think we will ever experience. The story begins. I am from Bosnia. You know, between 1992 and 1995 it was hell. For 1 year I lived and survived in a city with 6,000 people without water, electricity, gasoline, medical help, civil defense, distribution service, any kind of traditional service or centralized rule. Our city was blockaded by the army, and for 1 year life in the city turned into total crap. We had no army, no police, we only had armed groups. Those armed protected their homes and families. When it all started, some of us were better prepared, but most of the neighbors' families had enough food only for a few days. Some people had pistols, a few had AK-47s or shotguns. After a month or two, gangs started marauding, destroying everything. Hospitals, for example, turned into slaughterhouses. There were no more police. About 80% of the hospital staff were gone. I was lucky as my family at the time was fairly large, with 15 people in a large house, 6 pistols, 3 AK-47s, and we survived, most of us at least. The Americans dropped meals ready to eat every 10 days to help those blockaded in cities. This was never enough. Some people, very few, had gardens. It took 3 months for the first rumors to spread of men dying from hunger and cold. We removed all the doors, the window frames from abandoned houses, ripped up the floors and burned the furniture for heat. Many people died from diseases, especially from the water, 2 of which were from my own family. We drank mostly rainwater, ate pigeons and even rats. Money soon became worthless. We returned to an exchange. For a tin can of stewed meat, you could have a woman. It is hard to speak of it, but it is true. Most of the women who sold themselves were desperate mothers. Arms, ammunition, candles, lighters, antibiotics, gasoline, batteries and food were things we fought like animals. In these situations, it all changes. Men become monsters. It was disgusting. Strength was in numbers. A man living alone getting killed and robbed would be just a matter of time, even if he was armed. Today, me and my family are well prepared. I am well armed. I have experience. It does not matter what will happen. An earthquake, a war, a tsunami, aliens, terrorists, economic collapse or uprising. The important part is that something will happen. Here's my experience. You can't make it on your own. Don't stay apart from your family. Prepare together and choose reliable friends. If you have watched this far into our video, we want to say thank you. We ask that you like, comment and subscribe so the YouTube algorithm shares this with others. The city was divided into communities by streets. Our street, 1,520 homes, had patrols. 5 armed men every week watched for gangs and for our enemies. All the exchanges of goods occurred in the street. 5 kilometers away was an entire street for trading, all well organized. But going there was too dangerous because of the snipers. You could also get robbed by bandits. I only went there twice when I needed something really rare like medicine, mainly antibiotics. Nobody used automobiles in the city. The streets were blocked by wreckage and by abandoned cars. Gasoline was very expensive. If one needed to go somewhere, that was done at night. Never travel alone or in groups that were too big. Travel armed swiftly in the shadows. Cross streets through ruins, not along open streets. There were many gangs, some as large as 50 men. There were also many normal men like you and me, fathers and grandfathers, who killed and robbed. There were no good or bad men. Most were in the middle, and they were ready for the worst. There were not that many woods around the city. It was very beautiful there, with restaurants, cinemas, schools, even an airport. Every tree in the city and parks were cut down for fuel in the first 2 months. Without electricity for cooking and heat, we burned anything that would burn, such as furniture, doors and flooring that burned swiftly. We had no suburbs or suburban farms. The enemy was in the suburbs. We were surrounded. Even in the city, you never knew who was the enemy at any given point. To imagine the situation a bit better, you should know it was practically a return to the Stone Age. For example, I had a container of cooking gas, but I did not use it for heat. That would be poor use for such a valuable item. I attached a nozzle to it and used it to fill lighters. Lighters were precious. If a man brought an empty lighter, I would fill it, and he would give me a tin of food or a candle. I was a paramedic. In these conditions, my knowledge was my wealth. Be curious and skilled. In these conditions, the ability to fix things is more valuable than gold. Items and supplies will inevitably run out, but your skills will keep you fed. Learn to fix things, shoes or people. My neighbor, for example, knew how to make kerosene for lamps. He never went hungry. Today I know everything can collapse really fast. I have a stockpile of food, hygiene items, batteries, etc., enough to last me for 6 months. I live in a very secure flat and own a home with a shelter in a village 5 kilometers away. Another 6-month supply is there too. That's a small village. Most people there are well prepared. The war had taught them. I have 4 weapons and 2,000 rounds for each. I have a garden and have learned gardening. I also have a good instinct because when everyone around you keeps telling you it will all be fine, no, it will all collapse. I have strength to do what I need to protect my family. When it all collapses, you must be ready to do bad things to keep your children alive and protect your family. Surviving on your own is practically impossible. That's what I think. Even if you're armed and ready, if you are alone, you will die. I have seen that happen many times. Families and groups that are well prepared and have skills and knowledge in various fields will fare much better. If you plan to live by theft, all you need is weapons and ammo. Lots of ammo. If not, accumulate food, hygiene items, batteries, little trading items like knives, lighters, flints, and soap. Also, alcohol of a type that keeps well. The cheapest whiskey is a good trading item. Many people died from insufficient hygiene. You'll need simple items in great amounts. For example, garbage bags, lots of them, and toilet paper. Non-reusable dishes and cups. You'll need lots of them. I know that because we didn't have any at all. As for me, a supply of hygiene items is perhaps more important than food. You can shoot a pigeon. You can find a plant to eat. You can't find or shoot any disinfectants. You need disinfectants, detergents, bleach, soap, gloves, masks, or first aid skills, such as washing wounds and burns. Perhaps you will find a doctor and will not be able to pay him. Learn to use antibiotics. It's good to have a stockpile of them. You should choose the simplest weapons. I carry a Glock 45, I like it. But it's a rare gun here, so I also have 2 9mm pistols too, as everyone has them and ammo is common. I don't like the AK-47, but again, everyone has them, so do I. You must own small, unnoticeable items. For example, a generator is good, but 1,000 Bic lighters are better. A generator will attract attention if there is any trouble, but 1,000 lighters are compact, cheap, and can always be traded. We usually collected rainwater into 4 large barrels and then boiled it. There was a small river, but the water in it became very dirty very fast. It's also important to have containers for water such as barrels and buckets. I personally traded all the gold in the house for ammunition. Sometimes we got our hands on dollars and Deutschmarks. We bought some things with them, but this was rare and prices were astronomical. For example, a can of beans could cost $300. The local money quickly became worthless. Everything we needed, we would trade through bartering. Coffee and cigarettes were even more expensive. I had lots of alcohol and traded it without problems. Alcohol consumption grew over 10 times as compared to peacetime. Perhaps today it's more useful to keep a stock of cigarettes, lighters, and batteries. They take up less space. At this time, I was not a survivalist. We had no time to prepare. Several days before the shit hit the fan, the politicians kept repeating over the TV that everything was going according to plan. There's no reason to be concerned. When the sky fell on our heads, we took what we could. After the war, we had guns in every house. The police confiscated lots of guns at the beginning of the war, but most of them we hid. Now I have one legal gun that I have a license for, under the law that's called a temporary collection. If there is unrest, the government will seize all the registered guns. Never forget that. You know, there are many people who have one legal gun, but also illegal guns, if that one gets seized. If you have good trade goods, you might be able to get a gun in a tough situation. But remember, the most difficult time is the first days. And perhaps you won't have enough time to find a weapon to protect your family. To be disarmed in a time of chaos and panic is a bad idea. In my case, there was a man who needed a car battery for his radio. He had shotguns, so I traded for both of them. Sometimes I traded ammunition for food, and a few weeks later traded food for ammunition. I never traded for goods at home and never in large amounts. Few people knew how much and what I kept at home. The most important thing is to keep as many things as possible, in terms of space and money. Eventually you'll understand what is more valuable. Correction. I will always value weapons and ammunition the most. Second, maybe gas masks and filters. Our defenses were very primitive. Again, we weren't ready, and we used what we could. The windows were shattered, and the roofs were in a horrible state after the bombings. The windows were blocked, some with sandbags, others with rocks. I blocked the fence gate with wreckage and garbage, and used a ladder to get across the wall. When I came home, I asked someone inside to pass over the ladder. We had a fellow on our street that completely barricaded himself in his house. He broke a hole in the wall, creating a passage for himself into the ruins of the neighbor's house, a sort of secret entrance. Maybe this would seem strange, but the most protected houses were looted and destroyed first. In my area of the city, there were beautiful houses with walls, dogs, alarms, and barred windows. People attacked them first. Some held out, others didn't. It all depended how many hands and guns they had inside. I think defense is very important, but it must be carried out unobtrusively. If you are in a city and shit hits the fan comes, you need a simple, non-flashy place, with lots of guns and ammo. How much ammo do you need? As much as possible. Make your house as unattractive as you can. Right now, I own a steel door, but that's just against the first wave of chaos. After that passes, I will leave the city to rejoin a larger group of people, my friends and family. We always had superior firepower and a brick wall on our side. We also constantly kept someone watching the streets. Quality organization is paramount in case of gang attacks. Shooting was constantly heard in the city. Our perimeter was defended primitively, with all the exits barricaded and with little firing slits. Inside, we had at least 5 family members ready for battle at any time, and 1 man in the street, hidden in a shelter. We stayed home through the day to avoid sniper fire. At first, the weak perish, then the rest fight. During the day, the streets were practically empty due to sniper fire. Defenses were oriented towards short-range combat alone. Many died if they went out to gather information, for example. It's important to remember we had no information, no radio, no TV, only rumors and nothing else. There was no organized army. Every man fought. We had no choice. Everybody was armed, ready to defend themselves. You should not wear quality items in the city, as someone will murder you and take them. Don't even carry a pretty long arm. It will attract attention. Let me tell you something. If shit hits the fan starts tomorrow, I'll be humble. I'll look like everyone else. Desperate, fearful. Maybe I'll even shout and cry a little bit. Pretty clothing is excluded altogether. I will not go out in my new tactical outfit to shout, "I have come, you are doomed bad guys." No, I will stay unnoticed, well-armed, well-prepared, waiting and evaluating my possibilities, with my best friend or brother. Super defenses, super guns are meaningless. If people think they should steal your things, that you're profitable, they will. It's only a question of time and the number of guns in hands. For a toilet, we used shovels and a patch of earth near the house. Does it seem dirty? It was. We washed with rainwater or in the river, but most of the time the latter was too dangerous. We had no toilet paper, and if we had any, I would have traded it away. It was a dirty business. Let me give you a piece of advice. You need guns and ammo first, and second, everything else. Literally everything else. All depends on the space and money you have. If you forget something, there will always be someone to trade with for it. But if you forget weapons and ammo, there will be no access to trading for you. I don't think big families are just extra mouths. Big families means both more guns and strength, and from there, everyone prepares on his own. Most injuries were from gunfire. Without a specialist and without equipment, if an injured man found a doctor somewhere, he had about a 30% chance of survival. This isn't a movie. People died. Many died from infections of superficial wounds. I had antibiotics for 34 doses for the family, of course. People died foolishly quite often. Simple diarrhea will kill you in a few days without medicine and limited amounts of water. There were many skin diseases and food poisonings. Nothing to it. Many used local plants and pure alcohol. Enough for the short term, but useless in the long term. Hygiene is very important, as well as having as much medicine as possible. especially antibiotics. We want to say thank you for watching to the end of the video. We ask that you like, comment, and subscribe so the YouTube algorithm shares this with others. We can continue to build the channel with your support. We also have provided some links in the description to highly rated and affordable products that can help with assembling a basic emergency kit for short-term emergencies. Do your own research for what is best for you and your family. Planning for a crisis is your first advantage when a disaster happens.